Haribol. Which verse is it? 54?
It was a long purport yesterday.
Yeah.
53 yesterday?
Yeah. 53 yesterday. Mark was on 54. I was told it was 54.
But I spoke only about the time yesterday.
You didn't have enough time to speak about anything else because the purport was very long. The time was one of the subjects. I just quickly saw the word time mentioned. Cal was mentioned there in the purport.
Yesterday, 53?
53. 54 today? Yesterday was 53. Yeah, apparently. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 13, Text 54. And the chapter is entitled, Brahma Stealing the Boys and the Calves. So we're coming quite close to the end. There's only another 9 or 10 verses. And the purports here, some of them are very long, which is extraordinary really, considering that these verses and purports were some of the very last that Srila Prabhupada revealed to the world. And his health condition at this stage, of course, was, practically speaking, unlivable. I mean, it would have been the last month or so, maybe these purports would have been spoken. So it's quite incredible how clear and how even extensive they are. Maybe some of the technical details Pradyumna Prabhu was assisting with, but the general text and thread Srila Prabhupada was giving. So text 54 is not manifested at the moment. If you have it on your mobiles, you can tune in, otherwise maybe I'll just read it through. Satya Jnanantananda, Satya Jnanantananda Matraika Rasamutayaha Aprishta Bhuri Mahatmya Api Upanishadrisham. Word for word, Satya,
Satya,
eternal,
eternal,
Jnana,
Jnana,
having full knowledge,
having full knowledge,
Ananta,
Ananta,
unlimited,
unlimited,
Ananda,
Ananda,
fully blissful,
fully blissful,
Matra,
Matra,
only,
only,
Ekarasa,
Ekarasa,
always existing,
always existing,
Murtayaha,
Murtayaha,
forms,
forms,
Asprishta Bhuri Mahatmyaha,
Asprishta Bhuri Mahatmya,
whose great glory
whose great
is
glory
not touched.
is not touched,
Api,
Api,
even, he, because, Upanishadrisham,
Upanishadrisham,
by those jnanis
but those jnanis
who are engaged
who are engaged
in studying the Upanishads.
in studying the Upanishads.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Vishnu Murtis all had eternal, unlimited forms, full of knowledge and bliss, and existing beyond the influence of time. Their great glory was not even to be touched by the Jnanis engaged in studying the Upanishads. So at this stage, of course, we've been reading, the Lord has satisfied the, you can say, desire of Lord Brahma to see the great opulences of the Lord, and here his mystic potency, you could say, that each and every one of those cowherd boys is actually, of course, in their, you could say, their normal, original form, they are servitors of the Lord. But in this particular case, they are the Lord himself, each and every one of them. Showing, because Lord Brahma was in his role of creator and of the universe, he's also managing in many ways the universe, overseeing the demigods. He is naturally in the mood of a reverential perception, although his inner desire is to attain, as we'll see in the next chapter maybe, to attain the mood of Vrindavan. But the Lord told him that now you have to perform your duty. So when you're performing a duty, you have to act according to the duty's needs. You may be a policeman or a judge or some authority, legal authority. And just because that person is your friend, it doesn't mean that you act in a very intimate way with them. They're in the court. And the judge, he has to act in a very official way. He can't compromise his responsibility. So Lord Brahma has this responsibility to deal with the material energy. Conditioned souls. You may be a very nice person, but if you're a prison warder, you have to treat the prisoners according to the legal system. Although it may sometimes be seen there is some favoritisms, but in principle there should not be. The Lord Brahma has to reciprocate for this with the Lord in this way in the form of his duty. So, and we've heard already how he wanted to prove to the world that Krishna is, without a doubt, the Supreme Person. So this pastime is one of those evidences, you could say, to show Krishna's supremacy over all. Now, Prabhupada writes in the purport, mere Shastra Gyan, Shastra, scriptures, Gyan, knowledge, or knowledge in the Vedas, in this case the Veda, does not help anyone understand the personality of Godhead. It's almost a challenging statement in some ways. Doesn't help anyone? What's the point of it then? Only one who is favored or shown mercy by the Lord can understand him. Krishna cannot be understood by our, Prabhupada used the word, puppy brains. It means like a little dog. What can we understand? We're so limited with our reasoning, our intellectual capacity, our mental faculties, our logic and reason, our memory, everything is so small in reality. To understand the absolute is not within the realm of anu, the jiva, is very small. If it were, then we would also be on that same level of godhood. He cannot be understood in full by any living entity. Even Lord Brahma was bewildered by this pastime. Up to a point. Krishna is inconceivable. You can conceive of him to the extent that the Lord reveals himself, as this verse now says from the Mundaka Upanishad, one of the commentaries on the Vedas. Nayam atma pavachanena labhyo na medasa na bahuna shutena yang evaisha vinute tena labhyas tashaisha atma vivinutitanam spam. The Supreme Lord is not obtained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, or even by much hearing. He's obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. This may initially be seen as some kind of random or some favoritism, or maybe random. The one he favors. Of course, we understand, at least theoretically, that he doesn't just randomly choose someone to shower his mercy upon. He throws everyone into a big bag, lucky dip, and pulls a few jivas out of the bag. Ah, you're the lucky ones. There is a reciprocation, as Krishna explains one of the key verses of the Bhagavad Gita, Yayata mam prapajyate tamastataiva bhajamyaham. That the Lord reciprocates. He reciprocates with his devotees according to their surrender. So it's not so much about one's knowledge, what one does, even one's mechanical hearing, or one's position, or the time employed, but more about the attitude, the surrendered attitude, the submissive, surrendered attitude. The Lord reciprocates accordingly. If our attitude is one of pride, which to some degree that is likely to be there in the conditioned stage, or a desire to obtain some objective result from one's activities, or it could be even worse, to literally declare oneself as God, think one is an avatar or something, then the Lord will reciprocate, but he won't reveal himself in the full way. He'll reciprocate as death, or maybe elevation to a heavenly planet if one's somewhat pious or something, or to a hellish planet, or something else, maybe liberation at most. But that's only partial. The Lord is reciprocating or revealing himself only partially. Like if a person is anything you could say practically, a bank manager. And you say, tell me about them. And all you know is that they're a bank manager. It's partial truth, but it's not their full personality. Jai Gauritai, Krishna Maran, Radha Govinda Madhava. It's just a kind of a distant understanding of their actual personality, something to do with it. They're a grey coat. Maybe they do like grey coats, but that's not very deep understanding. He only reveals, even ourselves in our own lives, we don't reveal much about ourselves to anyone and everybody. That may be revealed to very confidential persons, those who are friends, those who have a very deep trust, a friendly disposition. So the Lord reveals himself accordingly. And the jiva does too, to a certain extent. Not as expertly, of course. We're controlled by the modes of nature. But the principle is like that. So he chooses. As Prabhupada writes in his poem, Markane Bhagavat Dharma, by your will they have all come under the material energy, and by your will they can be released. And that is qualified by Prabhupada's prior and after statements. But in other words, we cannot even come into the material world. We can't even have this form, this opportunity, this mental proclivity, our intellectual, rationality, our perception. Everything is ultimately the provision of the Lord, the world which we perceive, the means through which we perceive. Everything is coming from the Supreme Being. It's his energy, which he provides according to our particular relationship with him. And in most cases, it's a forgetful relationship. So he provides a situation where we completely forget him. And even if topics concerning him somehow or another come up, they're rejected as mythology or whatever, something unreal, unacceptable, undigestible, whatever. This is the reciprocation, because that's what we want. Just like in a prison house, it's also the government's arrangement. It's not independent. The government arranges it. They arrange accommodation for certain persons who have, they say, negative relationship with the government or the law. They don't work with it. They don't like it. So they're maybe placed in a prison house. Well, that's the jiva's mentality, is averse to the will of the Lord, you can say. But the Lord, being the Father, overseer of everything, provides facilities for such averse living entities, such independent living entities, and that's the material world, or worlds, in which the living entity forgets God. Maybe a little bit of remembrance comes in the human form of life through the practice of some dharmic, so-called dharmic activities, which indicate a supreme being whom we should follow or worship of some kind. Even that is quite distant, it's very vague, but it's on the path at least, if it's authorized, if it's actually as was given by the Lord or his representatives. Then one can make some progress towards waking or reality, establishing one's actual relationship with God. It is not just a relationship within this world of reverential worship. Lord Brahma has that role, as do the great devotees too, to a certain extent, to guide the conditioned souls in a reverential way. In our devotional lives, that element comes in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, where we follow rules and regulations, like it or lump it, as a necessary stage towards attracting the attention of the Lord. They are his words, they are his directives. So as we follow those directives, and the more our attitude is one of humble submission, the more the Lord reveals himself. Without following these basic standards, there's no way the Lord is going to reveal himself. We can read 100,000 books on various things. Maybe you're an expert memory by your karmic good fortune or whatever. But just simply remembering these things, if our attitude is not humble submission, then the Lord is not obligated to reveal himself. So he chooses the one who actually has the right attitude, because he reciprocates with all, and he may kindly take away these, say, unfavorable attitudes or unfavorable intentions, frustrating the devotee in various ways, or frustrating the practitioner in various ways. He may do, if you're lucky. But ultimately it depends on him. Even the release from this world, it's not like, I've chanted 1 billion names of Krishna, therefore I should be eligible. It doesn't work like that. That may be, of course, taken into account. It's definitely not to be looked down upon in one sense, but it's not enough just to expect, maybe you get liberation from that or something. But it's not enough to like almost demand. This is not a business arrangement. That if I do this, you give me that. It's not. Love is not business. Love is the actual relationship of the soul. Without any devotional service, we are aspiring to come to that platform. Anyabilasita shunyam jnana kamajinavritam anakulyena krishnanushilanam. We're desiring, we're aspiring, we should be. This verse from the Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada says, is Rupa Goswami describes this as the Paribhasha Sutra, which is the essential verse which captures the overall intention of a text. Of course, it goes deeper and into that, let's say, attitudinal approach. But this verse means that devotional service is not performed with any desire for fruitive or material returns, not desire for liberation, not desire to attain any kind of mystical or powerful position within this world, or any other reason come to that. Devotional service is purely meant to be anukulyena, which means completely pleasing to the Lord, favorable to the Lord. Not that the Lord is our order supplier. He may in the beginning appear like that, but that's not pure devotion. That may be a little bit of a beginning on the path of the Dharma, but it's not the real Dharma. It's not the Sanatan or eternal Dharma. The eternal Dharma of the living entity is anukulyena, which means pleasing to the Lord. And that is practiced. There is a shilanam, which means cultivated. It's cultivated. Just like yesterday, the devotees down there, I've forgotten everyone's names, but there was two of them, two of our wonderful new devotees, our monks, were down there yesterday planting pumpkins, preparing this, putting in the cow dung, and then the new plants, which are seedlings, which have grown a little bit, putting them in the cow dung, watering them. The holes are already there. Preparation work. That's not the end of it, is it? Hey, we were planting pumpkins. Well, where's the pumpkins? I don't see any pumpkins. I see some scrawny little plants with some straw around them, and I don't see any pumpkins. That's not the goal, is it? Just to do that. But that is a absolute requirement. There are other factors, but that's an absolute requirement. Without doing that, you're not going to get any pumpkins. Maybe you don't care less if you get any pumpkins anyway, but the objective goal of that is to get pumpkins. It's not just to keep us busy, but the intention is to get pumpkins. So the intention of all we're doing is not just to do it, and if I like it, so be it, and if I don't, I won't do it. No, there's a divine, topmost intention of everything we do. That is to awaken our dormant love of God. Pure love, anyabilasita, anukulyena Krishna, anushilanam. Anu means eternal or following in the footsteps of others. Either a constant factor or following in the footsteps of those who have it. This is the process. We follow those who don't necessarily need to follow what we do, but they have the result, they have the goal, the ultimate objective of sadhana is love of Godhead, pure love, prema. Everything else is not an ultimate objective. It is a reciprocation, material or even spiritual. But pure love of Godhead is very rarely obtained. Very rare. Shravanadi Shuddhachite Kari Udaya, as the heart becomes cleansed by Shravanadi, by hearing and chanting about Krishna from the right source, the Lord is attracted by that. He reciprocates with that and cleanses, as we hear in the early parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam, essential chapter 2 of the first canto, where Sutta Goswami explains how this process works. Shushushoshradamasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syanmahat Sevaya Vipra Punyatirtha Nishevanat. Sutta Goswami explains how that by serving those devotees who are freed of all vice, great service is done. It's not direct to the Lord. We serve the Lord's representatives. And that is the most pleasing thing to the Lord. Most pleasing. And the Lord then gives us a little attraction towards that subject matter when we render the service. And when we have that little attraction, then Srinvatam Shvakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana. The Lord cleanses the heart of all these misgivings, all these dirty things within our heart. He's in our hearts, but we can't see him because it's covered. Our hearts are covered with all of our self-centered concepts, desires, perceptions, and so on. But the Lord cleanses them away one way or another when we take this opportunity to serve the devotees. They're not there to serve us. We're here to serve, not to be served. We're here to give, not to get. We're here to love, not to be loved sometimes. Of course, they do reciprocate like that, naturally. But that shouldn't be our intention. We're here to get. We're here to get served. That's not our business. That's not devotional service. That's at most, some kind of business arrangement. But we're here to actually become free of these coverings, the causes of suffering. We think they're the causes of happiness, but they're not. This idea that I should be in the center, that I should get what I want in our present situation is the cause of our suffering. It's not our business. It's not our nature. It's not our constitution. It's not pleasing to the Lord. The more selfless our devotion comes, the more pleasing it is to the Lord. The more surrendered we are. The more unconditional devotional service. Ananya bhakti, unconditional devotional service. This is pleasing to the Lord. Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. And naturally, even in our material lives, when somebody acts in such a way, we're pleased and we want to reciprocate somehow or another. Normally, if we're a normal person even. So, what to speak of Krishna? He's waiting. He's waiting for us. And he's giving us the opportunity to awaken by sending his dearmost devotees, speaking Shastric statements, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad, Vedas, and various other scriptures are there, either directly spoken or through his authorized representatives, to give us guidance. But if we don't follow, we will always be lost. We have to read them as well, so we know what we're supposed to follow. Otherwise, we have a tendency to speculate. We have a tendency to, follow our own whims. And that creates problems, because if two devotees are following their own whims, you're going to find that, you know, they've got different whims and they're going to argue with each other and not like each other and fight and so on. Guru Shastra Sadhu, to hear from the right source, from the right person, and to apply it in our lives, is the process of self-purification, which can, by the grace of the Lord, of course, ultimately depends on Him, lead to self-realization. Self-realization is maybe you have some glimpse of it or some theoretical idea, but actual realization of self is not just the satya, the sat aspect, or not even just the gyan, the knowledge aspect. The ananda, the bliss. The bliss aspect, the ananda aspect mentioned here, is our loving reciprocation with Krishna. This is the absolute truth. In all features is there, but ultimately it's to awaken our love of God. Otherwise we haven't really achieved self-realization. Only partial realization is not complete. We'll read on. One description given of Brahman is Satyam Brahma, Ananda Rupam. Satyam Brahma, Ananda Rupam. Brahman is the absolute truth and complete Ananda or bliss. The forms of Vishnu, the Supreme Brahman, were one, but they were manifest differently. This is one of the various forms, expansive forms of the Lord. I don't know what names of them are. There's Prakash and Vilas and Tadekatma and various things, but this definitely isn't Prakash because the forms are seemingly somewhat different. Maybe it's a form of Prakash. Prakash is when the Lord is the Lord just simply expanding Himself as in the same way, and in the Vilas forms there, like we have, Ramachandra and various other expansive forms, they act differently. It's the same Lord. So there's another form of expansion of the Lord where He expands as completely different living entities, acting in a very different way, but actually being Himself, unseen to others. It's almost like a person puts on a disguise and tries to behave like somebody else or something, but that's an imitation. But this is a reality. They are actually Krishna. All the calves and cow boys were actually Krishna. He expanded in every respect as those calves and cow boys. The mentality, the colors, the dress that they wear, everything about them. Nobody could detect that anything happened except for them. The mothers and the fathers were becoming madly attached to their calves and their children. It was, again, it's a reciprocation. They wanted to have Krishna, just like Mother Yasoda had Krishna as her son. They also felt, if only Krishna were my son. They wanted, so Krishna reciprocated. They wanted to serve Him in that mood. So He fully reciprocated with them during that year, unknown to them. And that's another story which you've read. But it's the reciprocation of the Lord with His devotees. In every way He's reciprocating with His actual cow boys and calves. He's reciprocating with Lord Brahma. He's reciprocating with all the parents, all the gopas and gopis, and all the cows, and with Lord Balaram, and with everybody else. Krishna's reciprocating accordingly. And with us, because from this we might get some, let's say, conviction or some direction in our lives towards the goal, full surrender and taking shelter of Krishna fully. Do as you wish with me. We'll read on. The followers of the Upanishads, however, cannot understand the varieties manifested by Brahman. Well, Krishna is Parabrahman, but He has unlimited varieties, as we see in this particular pastime. What a very incredible pastime. Where is it coming from? It's coming from the heart of Krishna. It's an arrangement of the Lord. An arrangement of the Lord to enjoy reciprocation with His devotees and to help others who are not in that mood, conditioned souls, to become attracted to Him, those who are sincere, or to keep those who are not sincere in the prison house. of the material illusion. This proves that Brahman and Paramatma can actually be understood only through devotion, because they can't understand it. They can't understand how this is some kind of speculation trying to describe some kind of illusion or something, but it's not. This is a reality. Pastime is a reality. But to realize or to understand it, even theoretically, there has to be some degree of devotion there. As confirmed by the Lord himself in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktyaham Mikaya Gayo. We don't have time to read that. Haven't even read it myself, so well, I have, but not today. To establish that Brahman indeed has transcendental form, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is one of the most prominent, after Lord Chaitanya's appearance he came, prominent commentators on Shastra, especially Srimad Bhagavatam. He had extensive commentaries. Much of his commentaries are the foundation on which Srila Prabhupada developed his commentaries, or his purports, actually. Probably amongst all the commentators on Srimad Bhagavatam, the devotee ones, he's the most prominent, probably. He gives various quotations from Shastra. So now it looks like we're going to hear some quotations from Shastra on this point. In the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, the Supreme is described as Aditya Varnam Tamasak Prastat. He whose self-manifested form is luminous, like the sun, and transcendental to the darkness of ignorance. It's not very deep in terms of personal aspect, but it does describe a transcendental form, not just a transcendental existence. He who Ananda Matram Ajarhang Puranam Ekang Santang Bahuda Drishyamanam. The Supreme is blissful, with no tinge of unhappiness. Although he is the oldest, he never ages. And although one, he is experienced in different forms. So these are some of the apparent contradictions which you could say perplex people sometimes. We see the same thing. Many of the Upanishads are like that. In the Upanishad also, he walks and he doesn't walk, and this and that. He's the biggest and the smallest. You see so many apparent contradictions. All forms of contradictions are resolved very easily in the personality of Godhead. There's nothing he can't be or do. That's why he's inconceivable to us. There's no limit to his greatness. There's no limit to his knowledge. There's no limits. He's the oldest, yet he never ages. We have this time consideration, measurements. This is the nature of Maya. We have this factor working on everything of time, which causes everything to be measured in various ways. And we try to limit things. We try to say, how big is he, how much, how old, when, this thing. We place all these questions on the Absolute. But they're not really applicable on the platform of the Absolute. The Absolute is absolute, ever existing. There is no beginning, there is no end. It's a difficult concept for conditioned souls like us. All the forms of the Lord, do we miss something? I think we did. Sarve nitya shashvatasthidahas tasya paratmana. All the forms of the Supreme Person are eternal. They're all eternal. They may be apakat or unmanifest or manifest, but they're all eternal. The Supreme Person has a form with hands and legs and other personal features, but his hands and legs are not material. He can do anything he likes with any part of his limbs. He can change his form as he likes. He can do anything he likes beyond their consideration. Bhaktas know that the form of Krishna or Brahman is not at all material. Rather, Brahman has a transcendental form, and when one is absorbed in it, being fully developed in bhakti, it's like you fully develop a negative film and you get a positive picture, the negative film is really nothing. And if you don't develop it in the right circumstance, it will be nothing. You won't see anything. You'll just see like a Brahman, just like a bright light or something. And that's how most people view things, I guess. But under the right circumstances, that negative film can become developed and you get a beautiful picture. That's a material example, so it's a limited example, but it gives a little idea, you could say, that when we develop our relationship with Krishna in the right circumstances, then we get the right picture, the right understanding. Krishna reveals the right thing to us if we follow his righteous path. Premanjana Churta Bhakti Vilochanena, famous verse in Brahma Samhita, that only those whose eyes are tinged with the salve of love are eligible to see that Supreme Lord. The Mayavadis, however, cannot understand this transcendental form because they think that it is material. Because they're not devotional. They have no intention to surrender to a personality of Godhead. No, I am. Why should I surrender to anyone? I know what I'm doing. I'm the Supreme. Who are you to tell me what to do? Why should I bow down to you? We're all God, don't you know it? This is some of their simplistic, you could say, a simplistic description of the attitude. There's obviously a large amount, a deep philosophical, say, aspect to it as well. But it basically denies the eternal form of Godhead, and it denies my relationship with him as Anukulyena Krishna, as the eternal servant of the Lord whose business is to bring him pleasure. So they deny that. So it's that there's no bhakti in their activities. Even the activities may be there, but there's no bhakti. It's not an activity. Bhakti is a state of consciousness. If the activity is performed under a pure devotee, it may help to awaken that state of consciousness, but in of itself, the activity is not truly bhakti unless it's enriched with a mood of love and devotion. Transcendental forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his person are so great that the impersonal followers of the Upanishads cannot reach the platform of knowledge to understand them. Particularly the transcendental forms of the Lord are beyond the reach of the impersonalists. There's a verse. What is that verse? Advaitam achyutam anandam anantarupam majham purana purusham navyoganam cha vedeshu durlabam atma bhakto. Krishna is durlabha, very hard to understand. Even all the Vedas, he has unlimited forms which are all totally, he can do anything he likes with any of those limbs or any of the forms which he has. Very hard to understand by the study of the Vedas. There's another verse in the Brahma Samhita, I've forgotten, how the yogis after, or the meditators after, I see having meditation at 8:30 at night somewhere, I don't know, in the yoga hall. I don't know when. I see the sign in the reception area there. Meditation, but meditation on what? I don't know. But meditation of the Mayavadis or the impersonalists, they never understand. Krishna doesn't reveal himself through such endeavors. He's not obligated. He's totally independent. He's totally independent. We have a minor independence, but he's totally independent. He's the source of everything. He's not obligated just because you think you can grasp him with your meditation or your efforts. He's not within our grasp. Even by the Yasoda, proven in the pastime of your Damodar Lila, intense desire to, but there was a relationship of love. Eventually Krishna allowed her to bind him. But he's not bound up by the yogis, the meditators, the jnanis, and so on and so forth. Only one who is in surrendered, submissive love for him. Particularly the transcendental forms of the Lord are beyond the impersonalists, who can only understand through the study of the Upanishads that the absolute truth is not matter, and that the absolute truth is not materially restricted by limited potency. Yet although Krishna cannot be seen through the Upanishads, in some places it is said that Krishna can in fact be known in this way. Upanishadam Purusham, he is known by the Upanishads. This means that when one is purified by Vedic knowledge, one is then allowed to enter into devotional understanding. Mad bhaktim labhate param. This is the actual position or platform of when we, through the Upanishads, we may understand the transcendental nature of the Vedas, of the Absolute. And if one is particularly the transformative, let's say, stage, as was explained by Ramananda Roy to Lord Chaitanya or by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter. The transcendental stage, Jnane Prayasam Urupastan Eva, that one should hear from the pure devotees of the Lord, the subject matter. You don't have to change one's station, necessarily, but the submissive hearing from the right source. The same thing is there in the Bhagavad Gita. Tadviti pranipatine pariprashnena sevya. After describing so many paths which may lead to divya jnana or transcendental knowledge, Krishna then says, Prabhupada has described that unless these paths lead to love of God, they remain material. But then Krishna gives the clear, you could say, transformation of these activities into divya or transcendental. Tadvidi Panipatina, by approaching a self-realized soul, inquiring submissively and rendering service, the self-realized soul, because he has seen that truth, can reveal that truth to us. And he reveals it. How does he reveal it? It's not like a magic wand that he sort of waves in front of our nose. But it is, in another sense, he gives us directions by which Krishna can be pleased. By his presence one becomes inspired, one becomes enthused to work towards that goal. One has many realizations in their presence. But in practical terms, they give us these directions by which Krishna is pleased. And when Krishna is pleased, then he will start to reveal himself step by step by step. Cleanse our hearts, protect the devotee in various ways, give the devotee an ever-increasing taste in his activity in devotion, and ultimately reveal himself to the devotee. Tachtradadan munayo jnanavarakya yuktaya pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shrutakadhitaya. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti, the revealed scriptures. And the word Shrutaguhitayam refers to Vedanta knowledge, not sentimentality. Shrutaguhita is sound knowledge. Now that can be taken in two ways. Sound, meaning the vibration, the oral vibration, or it can mean solid, real knowledge. But either way it can be taken. But it's the actual foundation, is the actual process to hear the right thing from the right source. The Vedas are given by Krishna, spoken by the Lord himself. And the Puranas and other scriptures are expansions of those Vedas. Bhagavad Gita is also directly spoken by the Lord. Smriti. Smriti, then you get the Puranas, which are Smriti, that which is spoken by the Lord's representatives about the Lord, or the path of devotion. Srimad Bhagavat Purana, and others, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Vishnu, Brahma thus realized, is the reservoir of all truth, knowledge and bliss. So Brahma is realizing this. He is the combination of these three transcendental features, and he's the object of worship for the followers of the Upanishads. I don't have much of a memory for things, but there are verses which directly describe this. If we prepared a little bit on this, we may have found those verses. But there are these verses which describe how the worshippers is the object of worship of the real followers of the Upanishads. Brahma realized that all the different forms of cows, boys and calves transformed into Vishnu forms were not transformed, that's an important point, were not transformed by mysticism of the type that a yogi or demigod can display by particular powers invested in him. By certain powers he's able to create something, create some expansion of his own form or something sometimes, or even a mystical form different to the form you normally see. We see this even with the demons, they do that. Putana, for instance, transformed herself into a beautiful young lady who everyone thought was like the goddess of fortune. But it was just a mystic show. But that they may do, but that's not what's going on here. The cows, calves and boys transformed into Vishnu forms were not displays of Vishnu Maya or Vishnu's energy, but were Vishnu himself. Everything else is an expansion of his energy, you could say. But they were actually himself appearing in these various forms. The respective qualifications of Vishnu and Vishnu Maya are just like those of fire and heat. In heat, there is the qualification of fire, namely warmth, and yet heat is not fire. The manifestation of the Vishnu forms of the boys, cows, and calves was not like the heat, but rather like the fire. They were all actually Vishnu. Factually, the qualification of Vishnu is full truth, full knowledge, and full bliss. They may or may not be expanding, or not expanding is not the word, manifesting those full qualities in one sense. Because the Lord is in the reciprocating with the devotees in the form of a calf. But the essence behind it all is there. The most essential quality, bhaktavatsal, of the Lord, his love for his devotees, is the root, not so much the opulent manifestation, which was basically unseen to ever, including Balaram, didn't even recognize it till the last few days, how these forms were actually Krishna himself. But the essential factor which was going on, and in pure love, the presence of opulence, of reverential relationship is removed, it's not there. It's a pure loving relationship. So Krishna was giving that pure love, the essence of the Vedas, the essence of relationship, everything. There was no degree of understanding this calf is Krishna. This calf is my calf. I love this calf. I love my calf. And that love increased unendingly during that 1 year. Another example may be given with material objects which may be reflected in many, many forms. For example, the sun is reflected in many water pots, but the reflections of the sun in many pots are not actually the sun. There is no actual heat and light from the sun in the pot, although it appears as the sun. But each and every one of the forms Krishna assumed was fully Vishnu. Each and every one of those forms was fully Vishnu. It wasn't a reflection or partial something. It was fully Vishnu, complete himself, although appearing very differently. We should discuss, and this is probably the most interesting paragraph. It's a short one, but we have to finish with this. We should discuss Srimad Bhagavatam daily as much as possible, and then everything will be clarified. These are important points. we'll finish on reading this, and as a thought came to my mind, I don't expect anyone's interested, but what is it today? Wednesday? Wednesday. So maybe 7 o'clock this evening we can speak on this. This is the only part I prepared. I didn't even hardly read the rest of the purport, but this little paragraph, I did prepare something on it, but we haven't got, and anyway, it's not something we want to rush through. We should discuss Srimad Bhagavatam daily as much as possible, and then everything will be clarified. For Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedic literature. Nigamakapataro Galitam Palam. It was written by Vyasadeva, Mahamuni Krite, when he was self-realized. Thus, the more we read Srimad Bhagavatam, this is a famous sentence, the more we read Srimad Bhagavatam, the more its knowledge becomes clear. Each and every verse is transcendental. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. We will finish there, but I won't swear by it, but we'll try to give a little talk on that this evening at 7 o'clock, if anyone wants. I said maybe there's something else going on, meditation or yoga or something, I don't know. But if you want, at least for self-purification, I'll try. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada, any questions, comments? Yes, Harini?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, could you describe how we can have a humble, submissive attitude?
You asked that question the other day. You asked that of Keshav Maharaj. I think that was one of the large topics which was discussed the other day. Well, in light of what I said, I'll just say one thing, and I also mentioned that, but it was in passing. That I haven't got the reference here because, I'm not like Maharaj. He has a mobile phone and he can sort of press a button and it comes on the screen. I don't know how he does it, He's got this mystic power of finding what he wants immediately. I don't have that. But I can only repeat briefly, basically what Prabhupada said, that pride means you want to be independent, you are acting independently. Humility means you're submitting to the authority. Humility. So take it as you like. But in one sense, the whole spiritual world is one of submitting to the will of the Lord, and the whole material world is trying to be independent. There is no humility in this world. None. It's only a relative description. As Prabhupada uses the word, it's amongst thieves. Honesty amongst thieves. They're thieves. They're criminals. So where is their honesty? Honesty amongst thieves. They're very proud of it. But it's actually pride. It's not. Humility means we give up our... that is our free will. We give up that wanting to be independent of the Lord, and we offer ourselves to Him. We give up all other forms of shelter, surrender entirely to Him. This is humility, this mood of surrender. We're practicing that right now. That's the whole process. Humility means to follow the line of parampara, disciplic succession. It's not a question of a behavior pattern that will follow automatically in due course of time. It's not that we make some kind of mechanical effort. You can do a little bit there, of course, when we see things which are unfavorable to the practice of devotion. And if there's some way we can adopt some favorable behavior, so be it. But without offering that, or without that being connected to the parampara, is of no use. Is of no value. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavata kinchana gunai sarva tattva samasata sarva. Harava bhaktasya kato mahadgunad mano vitena sati davato bihi. Prabhupada translates this verse a few different ways, but basically speaking, those who are actually surrendering to the process of devotional service automatically develop all the good qualities of the demigods. Now, it's asuras, I mean demigods we see sometimes don't seem to be, but it refers to the pure goodness, the qualities of pure goodness. Qualities of goodness in this world, but pure goodness ultimately. Because they naturally develop as the soul becomes cleansed of dirt, becomes cleansed of our, incorrect perception or our, and selfish conceptions of life and so on. As we become cleansed, then naturally the good qualities will manifest. Just like a jewel which is covered by dirt, as we clean off the dirt, the jewel will start to manifest. And by nature, the living entity is endowed with all one qualities to some degree. 78% of the Lord's qualities each jiva also has, to some degree, in fullness in their own case, but not in quantity, not comparable to the Lord, but in quality of the same. And so humility, in its real essential form, is completely integral in the nature of the self. This humility is simply thinking how to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not oneself. Many times we employ behavior patterns which are defined as humble behavior, but they're employed in order to, gain self-respect or some material result of some kind or another. It's not an imposition, it's a manifestation of the pure soul, genuine humility. So in this world we can say it's practically demonstrated by our submissive attitude in the performance of devotional service. That's how Lord Brahma got the ability to create, because of his submissive attitude in the performance of his service. He followed the Lord's instructions faithfully, and thus thus the Lord revealed himself. This is humility. It's unconditional ultimately. It's natural constitutional nature. But our tendency in this world is to see ourselves in the center, even with qualities which are given to us by God or are inherent, just somewhat perverted in our present situation. We see them in relationship to ourselves and not so much in relationship with Krishna. So seeing things in relationship with Krishna, no matter what happens in our life. Taking that position, tattenu kampam susamikshamanam. This is, you could say, another aspect of humility. You read the verse in Lord Brahma's prayers, next chapter. One of the most, Prabhupada said, this verse of Lord Brahma is the guideline for all devotees in our Krishna consciousness movement. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said we become humble by following the humble. By associating with, and not just associating with, but by following the will of the humble. It's by association that these qualities can develop. According to Lord Kapila Dev, Pasangamajuram Pasham, and I can't remember the rest of the verse, my faculties aren't capable of remembering it. But it means, basically speaking, that every learned man knows that the greatest entanglement for the living entity is association with matter or with materialistic people, the greatest entanglement. When that same association or tendency to associate is transferred to the self-realized souls, it's the cause of our liberation or freedom from this conditioning. So it's by associating, because the devotees are endowed with all these qualities, naturally including Tiksha, Krunika, naturally including tolerance and humility and so on. And when we hear, most of my time recently has been, in this area has been spent focusing on Haridas Thakur, who is the emblem amongst Lord Chaitanya's associates of tolerance and humility. He's a manifest emblem of those qualities. And by hearing and associating with him, how, that's another topic, how we do that, but this is the secret of these qualities developing, is by associating with such personalities who are constitutionally situated, who give their association to the conditioned souls. more so even than hearing from Shastra, is to associate with those devotees who are pure in heart, who have these natural qualities of humility, which may be misunderstood by material calculation, just like Arjuna would not be understood to have been humble by killing Karna on the battle of Kurukshetra. What is this? Poor old Karna, he's gotten down to fix the wheel of his chariot, and Arjuna kills him whilst he's putting the wheel on the chariot. What type of humility is this? This is really, it's against Dharma. It's terrible. But it was humility, because Krishna said, no, kill him. Materially speaking, people cannot understand this at all. It's just, and they're not meant to understand it either. That's the whole purpose of Krishna performing these things, is to keep such non-devotional mentality out of the picture. Devotees understand that Dharma, there's only one Dharma, and that's simply whatever Krishna wants. There's nothing to, after all, who's killing who? No one's being killed. If we've read the Bhagavad Gita in the first place, which we may not have done, one of the first instructions or first statements in the Bhagavad Gita is that the soul never dies. No one's actually killing anyone. It's just the bodies of the living entity which are changing. The whole point of Bhagavad Gita is to develop this mood of submission to the Lord, understanding our actual, of course many descriptions are there of proper behavior within the modes of nature and this and that, going to one's condition, karma yoga and jnana yoga and this yoga and that yoga, but ultimately they're all simply give them up, Krishna says, and just surrender unto me, do what I tell you to do. At this stage, on the transcendental platform, it's just a natural love. It's not even telling what to do. There's no question of that. It's just a natural, spontaneous love. But at our stage, it's, we may not want that. That's our choice, but that's how it is. We're independent, and Krishna's telling us what to do to utilize our independence properly. Proper use of our independence. For humility, proper use of our independence, you could also say. By submitting that intelligence or that independence under the direction of the Lord, His teachings, His followers, etc. This is how humility. This is practical humility. It may not be fully, let's say, embellished with an actual inner mood, but we've accepted that. And especially in chanting the holy names, humility is to simply hear the sound of the holy name. You don't have to put all kinds of speculative kind of frameworks in there. You just hear the sound of the holy name. Krishna will do the rest. Cleanses the heart. Cleanses the heart. The devotee who humbly submits themselves like this. The name is Krishna, so try to hear that name. All kinds of realizations will come. Favorable realizations will come. By submitting ourselves to the sound of the holy name. That's the instructions of the Lord and the instructions of the Lord's devotees, to submit ourselves to the sound, to the presence of Krishna, particularly in the sound of the holy name, the deities, the instructions. The instructions tell us to submit ourselves to the holy name, amongst other things, of course. All right, we're going to finish there. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hari Bol.